I have some exciting news about Great Grandpa's 42 Super Deluxe. So I was recently able to meet with the owner of the car. He is the 85-year-old grandson of the original owner, and we were able to make a deal on the car. We have an agreed price, and we're just finalizing everything before I take possession of it. While I was with him, I was able to hear some great stories about the car and its history. He originally purchased it from my wife's great-grandfather in 1958, and he was able to show me the title that was issued to him at that time. He also showed me the original car keys that were in the original little leather pouch from the dealer that they still have from 1942. And that's really cool, so I'm going to be able to get it. He also has 3 of the 4 original wheels. It came with 16-inch wheels. One amazing fact I learned is I thought this car's been sitting for about 18 to 20 years. In fact, he said he parked it in 1970, 52 years ago. And he told me a story about that day. He was living about 45 miles away and drove it out to his dad's farm, which is just a mile away from us. And he said that day he drove it 80 miles an hour the whole way out here, and he parked it. So it was a runner and a driver when he parked it 52 years ago. He also added that recently, and I don't know how many years ago this could have been, but he did check the engine and it was still free. I haven't checked it yet, but that's one of the first things that I'm going to do because I really hope to get this car running again with minimal work. It's going to be really exciting if that's a possibility. So right now the plan is we are going to have a surprise Christmas gift for my son when he comes home for Christmas. And I'm going to hopefully be able to capture all of that and share it with you. It's going to be exciting. So the plan is that we're going to have the car sitting where it's sitting a few miles from our place and not tell him what's going on. We're just going to load up in the car and come out here and surprise him. And so the plan already is his name is going to be on the title along with mine. And I'm going to be working on it when he goes back home and finishes school. So it's just going to be a blast. I'm so excited about this. Now, I have to say thank you for all of the comments and suggestions on my first video about this car. At this point, we have over 15,000 views. I haven't checked today, but I've been getting like 1,000 to 1,500 views a day after this video took off. It's been amazing, and I've received some amazing encouragement and advice on this. And so let me tell you about some of the initial kind of tentative decisions I've made. One hard decision is I'm not going to put an LS engine in it. I'm not going to put a Chevy or GM drivetrain in it. That's decided. I'm going to stick with the flathead. There's a possibility if that is not too feasible that I may find an early Y-block engine like a 312 to put in it, and that would stick with the idea of this being a 1950s custom. And so that's really what I want to go with. But I'm hoping to stick with the V8. I may end up pulling the 42 model V8 out and putting in a later model from the early 50s in there. Possibly a Mercury engine or putting a Mercury crank in it, increase the displacement a little bit, but end up doing kind of a 50s hot rod engine in there. I love the looks of the dual carbs. I've also heard that they're a little bit of a pain as far as the calibration and the tuning and all of that. But I did find a company who produces a Holley-based fuel injection that looks like the old single-barrel carburetor. And so I've seen their equipment on some flatheads, and they look amazing. And so that's a possibility just for drivability and just tuning and everything. It uses the Holley sniper system, and so that's a big possibility. The other thought I had is this is actually a 3 on the tree transmission, manual transmission, and so going with that, updating the transmission to something later model. I haven't decided if we would upgrade to an automatic or a 4-speed or what we'll do, and then a later model rear end, upgrade the brakes. Obviously, it'd be nice to be able to put disc brakes on the front and power brakes all the way around. updating the tires, updating the suspension. But one of the things, and again, I'm early on in this process, and I'm a Chevy guy, not a Ford guy, and even I'm a 60s, 70s muscle car guy, and so dealing with something from the 40s, I have a lot to learn, and I appreciate any advice you have. And so one of the things I want to do is whatever I do to this car to make it non-destructive and to make it reversible. And so if at any point in the future my son or his son decides they want to do a full restoration on this car, I want to keep the original drivetrain, original suspension pieces, everything will be kept to be able to put it back at a later date. But for right now, it's going to be modified but reversible, and that's something that's important to me. The other aspect that I am sticking with for now is the patina. It can be a controversial subject for people, but for me, initially, this is going to be kind of a low budget build, and paint, especially bodywork and paint, is very, very expensive. And so what I'm going to do is stick with the patina. I'm looking at some preservatives, different way to preserve it. I know that some people have done clear coat, and just from what I've heard, I want to steer clear of that. There's a company called Sweet Patina that has something called patina sauce that is applied about once a year according to them, and I do like the look of that. I want kind of a satin finish. I don't want a glossy patina on it or really flat patina, but I do want to preserve it, and there's a little bit of rust that I'm going to need to deal with and stop. There's some dents. At this point, just kind of pop them out very carefully and smooth things out, like up on top of the car and on the hood. There's a couple dents that we should be able to massage out of there pretty easily, and well, relatively easy. And that's the plan as far as the exterior goes. And I'd like to be able to update the wheels and tires to something that obviously radial tires are going to be a lot more drivable, and having a suspension to help just with safety and better brakes to help with safety. Those are all important aspects of this build. I have also received some fantastic advice from a website and forum called Ford Barn. And they have a bunch of different categories, but their early Ford category, I was able to post some photos and ask some questions, and the guys and gals there have been incredibly helpful and shared a ton of fantastic information about the early Fords, about the history of the 1942 model. It's a relatively rare Ford. It's a relatively rare car because in 1942, automotive production was switched to the war effort. I believe it was by the end of February 1942. And so the 42-year model is more rare than the 41, and then regular consumer production didn't start up again until 1946 after the war ended. And so there was just a few months there. I'm not sure when 42 production started. My guess would have been in the fall of 41, but you're looking at maybe 4, maybe 6 months of production instead of a full 12-month production year. And so the 42 is a little bit of an oddball in the automotive world. Fortunately, a lot of the parts from the prior years and later post-war years interchange, and so I'll be able to find parts from those model years, and also there is a fair availability of aftermarket parts. As part of the war effort, the reduction in using chrome and metal on cars means that a lot of the interior accents were chrome plastic, or were just some kind of a decorative plastic, which the heat and the sun and the cold have just destroyed that in this car, and the water have just destroyed that in this car. And so fortunately, there are parts out there. They're not cheap. Everything in this car is going to be expensive. And that's just the fact of the matter of getting a car from the 1940s. So thanks again for all the interest, all the comments, all the encouragement, all the views. I really appreciate it. This is going to be a cool ride as we begin to transform this 1942 Ford Flathead V8 Super Deluxe.